February 14th, 1933. Bumpy Johnson was outnumbered 12-1. Dutch Schultz had sent his deadliest crew, Tommy the Executioner, Vento, Marty, Icepick, Delaney, and 10 more killers whose names even the police didn't know. They trapped Bumpy in the basement of the Cotton Club. No witnesses. No exits. At just 27 years old, Bumpy was still learning the game, while Dutch Schultz stood as the most powerful mobster in New York. Everyone expected the same ending: Bumpy Johnson dead in the basement. What Dutch didn't know was that Bumpy Johnson didn't play by anyone's rules. 90 minutes later, only one of those 12 men walked out alive, carrying a message that made Dutch Schultz a man responsible for more than 40 deaths turn pale. This was the night Bumpy Johnson became untouchable. To understand what happened, you have to understand Harlem in 1933. The Harlem Renaissance was over. The Great Depression had crushed the neighborhood. People were desperate, and desperate. People gambled. The numbers racket, Harlem's illegal lottery, was its lifeblood. A nickel could turn into $50. For people earning $7 a week, that nickel wasn't just money, it was hope, and hope was currency. Dutch Schultz saw that currency. A German Jewish mobster from the Bronx, Dutch had made millions during Prohibition. But Prohibition was ending, and he needed a new empire. His eyes turned south to Harlem, where money flowed nonstop through the numbers game. He wanted all of it. There was just one problem: Harlem already had kings. Madame Stephanie St. Clair, the queen of numbers, and her enforcer, Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy wasn't like other muscle. He wasn't just a trigger man. He was intelligent, self-educated in prison, reading Shakespeare and philosophy. He understood something most gangsters didn't. Respect in Harlem wasn't bought with fear. It was earned through loyalty. When Madame St. Clair's runners were robbed, Bumpy got the money back. When corrupt cops tried to shake down black businesses, Bumpy made them disappear, sometimes violently, sometimes by destroying their careers and reputations. He was strategic, and he refused to bow to Dutch Schultz. In January 1933, Dutch sent emissaries to Harlem. They met Madame St. Clair at her club on 133rd Street and delivered a simple message: work with Dutch, pay tribute, or get buried. Madame St. Clair, a Korean immigrant who had built her empire from nothing, looked at the men sitting in her club and said, "Get out." The emissaries turned to Bumpy, standing silently in the corner. "You want to be smart about this, boy?" Bumpy didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stared, the kind of stare that made men think about their life insurance. The emissaries left and reported back to Dutch. Dutch Schultz had never been told no, especially not by a black woman and her enforcer. He decided to burn it all down, starting with Bumpy. He didn't just want him dead. He wanted a message. A public, brutal execution that would force everyone else to fall in line. February 14th, 1933. Valentine's Day ironic, considering what was about to happen. Bumpy got word that Dutch's men planned to hit Madame St. Clair's main counting house on Lenox Avenue at dawn. Bumpy went to check it out alone. That was his first mistake, or maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe Bumpy knew exactly what he was walking into. The Cotton Club basement wasn't the famous downtown club for white audiences. This was the real Cotton Club, an after-hours spot where Harlem's players drank, gambled, and settled scores. The basement was filled with liquor crates, poker tables, and one narrow staircase for an exit. A perfect trap. At 4:32 a.m., Bumpy walked down the stairs. The room was nearly pitch black, lit only by a single bulb swinging from the ceiling. Then he heard the sound of safeties clicking off. 12 guns. 12 men stepping out of the shadows. Tommy the Executioner moved forward. He had killed 16 men, always up close, always looking them in the eye. He smiled. Dutch sends his regards. Bumpy stood still, hands at his sides, face calm. He slowly scanned the room, counting 12 men, then looked back at Tommy. That all he sent? Tommy's smile faded. That was the thing people never understood about Bumpy Johnson. He didn't bluff. He didn't posture. If he said something, he meant it. Standing there, outnumbered 12 to 1, asking if that was all they sent wasn't bravado. It was calculation. You've got about 5 seconds to beg, Tommy said, raising his gun. Bumpy tilted his head slightly. You're making a mistake, Tommy sneered. What mistake? You're about to be dead. The mistake, Bumpy said calmly, is thinking I came here alone. The gun stayed trained on him, but something changed, hesitation, doubt. Tommy glanced toward the stairs. Nothing. He looked back at Bumpy. You're bluffing. Bumpy smiled for the first time. Then shoot. Nobody pulled the trigger. Because here's what Dutch Schultz's men didn't know. Bumpy Johnson had been fighting since he was 10 years old. Long before Harlem, back in Charleston, South Carolina, he learned violence in street fights, prison riots, and territorial wars. Over time, he understood something most men never did. Violence has a rhythm. And standing in that basement, Bumpy controlled the rhythm. Tommy's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance. Bumpy moved. What happened next was never fully explained. The one survivor's testimony was confused and fragmented, but this much is known. Bumpy didn't go for a gun. He went for the light. One punch shattered the hanging bulb. Darkness. Total darkness. Then chaos. The first shots came wild and panicked, men firing at shadows and sounds. Tommy screamed, "Hold your fire! Hold your fire!" But fear doesn't listen to orders. In that darkness, Bumpy became something else. He knew that room. He'd played poker there 100 times, knew every crate, every table, every corner. Dutch's men didn't. One by one, they went down. Not from bullets. Bumpy didn't waste them. He used his hands, their confusion, and the fact that they were shooting each other in panic. A scream, a body hitting the floor. Another gunshot, another scream. Tommy tried to rally them. The stairs! Get to the stairs! But Bumpy was already there. The violence lasted maybe 3 minutes, 3 minutes that felt like 3 hours. Then silence. When someone finally opened the basement door and light spilled down the steps, they found 11 bodies. Not all dead, but all broken gunshot wounds from friendly fire, shattered bones, blood everywhere. And one man still conscious, sitting against the wall, hyperventilating, gun shaking in his hand. Marty Delaney. Bumpy was gone, vanished like smoke. Marty crawled up the stairs. It took him 20 minutes. Every step was agony. As the sun came up, he flagged down a cab with blood-soaked money. Bronx, he gasped. Arthur Avenue. At 8:17 a.m., Marty stumbled into Dutch Schultz's social club. Dutch was eating breakfast eggs, toast, coffee, reading the paper. He looked up, saw Marty covered in blood, and froze. Where are the others? Marty couldn't speak at first, just shook his head. Dead? Dutch asked. All of them, Marty whispered. He let me live. Dutch stood slowly. He what? He let me live to give you a message. The room went silent. Lieutenants, bodyguards, accountants, all watching. What message? Dutch asked coldly. Marty reached into his jacket. Guns came up, but he pulled out a single playing card. Ace of spades, covered in blood. He placed it on the table. He said to tell you Harlem's not for sale. And if you send more men, send more cards. He's collecting a deck. Dutch stared at the card for a long time. Everyone waited for him to explode, to send 50 men to burn Harlem to the ground. Instead, Dutch picked it up, studied it, and smiled. a tired, resigned smile. He's got guts. I'll give him that. Boss, we can't let Dutch raised his hand. You know what it costs to go to war with a man who's not afraid to die, who's smarter than you, who has an entire neighborhood behind him. He shook his head. It costs everything. He dropped the card into an ashtray and lit it. We're done in Harlem. Let Bumpy Johnson have it. The decision shocked everyone. Dutch Schultz, the man who'd gone to war with Lucky Luciano, who'd killed his own partners, backed down. Why? Because Bumpy had proven something Dutch respected. He was willing to die for what he believed in. And men like that, you don't fight. You either kill them or leave them alone. And Dutch couldn't kill him. Years later, a reporter asked an old Cotton Club employee what really happened that night. The old man smiled. Bumpy wasn't alone, he said. He had 4 guys upstairs. They locked the basement door once Dutch's men went down. Trapped them in. Whether that's truth or legend, nobody knows. What is known is this: after that night, Dutch Schultz never sent another man into Harlem. Bumpy Johnson became the undisputed king of Harlem's underworld. February 14th, 1933. 12 men walked into a basement. 1 walked out, and Harlem was never the same.